Live from deep in an underground bunker in East Tennessee, this is America's premier mortgage fuel services expert, Paul Williams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Foreclosurepedia Podcast. Foreclosurepedia Podcast presentation of the Foreclosurepedia Radio Network. This evening we have with us Brett Douglas. Brett Douglas is the founder and the owner of Ironclad Preservation. You can reach him at www.teamironclad.com. You can always reach out to him on the phone at 386-774-0800. Interesting point of fact about Team Ironclad is this. You know, Team Ironclad covering virtually all of Florida. They're based out of DeLand, Florida. That, for those of you not familiar, that's right in between Orlando and Daytona Beach, a little bit closer to Daytona Beach. They do all their work with W-2 personnel, ladies and gentlemen. What that means is you get it the same way, the same time, each and every time. And what is the same way? The same way is right. Brett, are you out there this evening?
I most certainly am, Paul. Thanks for having me on board to get another episode here.
Yeah, it's always always a privilege and an honor to speak with you. One of the things that's that's been kicking in the back of my mind, and I think a lot of the people, in the industry's mind, is at the end of the day, time is money. I mean, would you agree with that?
I most certainly do. It's one of the things in this ever-changing landscape that we have to regulate our daily task and our time management, or we're not going to be able to accomplish our goals on a daily basis. There's only so much sunlight in the day.
Exactly, and so I'm going to take a wild stab here. I'm going to presume you probably have more than one client, and each client, I'm going to take a wild stab here. When they send you a work order, I'm going to guess that the work order form, the actual work order you get, is different from client to client. Is that a fair statement?
It certainly is, Paul, and therein lies the quandary. Not only do we have multiple clients, I think currently right now, Ironclad services about 12 clients, and each of those clients may have anywhere from 1 to 7 primary clients. So at any given time, we probably have about 20 different PCRs, posting signs, and different nomenclature that's involved between winterization stickers, entry stickers, lock stickers, any type of signage that we need to have on a daily basis. It gets rather confusing.
And so what I want to talk about a little bit this evening in our first segment, it is the work order in and of itself. So when we have a work order, now to me and for those listeners out there in the Foreclosurepedia Nation, even we now have have an interesting following actually from up there on the Hill. We have several congressional representatives and their liaisons who are listening to us this evening. A lock change, at the end of the day, a lock change is a lock change. The key code may be different, but the lock change is the same. The winterization, the reality is that no one in the industry has really ever sat down and said, okay, we're going to run this PSI in copper, CPVC, PVC, etc. ad nauseum, but the winterization has the same task. Either it passed or failed. The PSI was at X. And I'm going to presume cutting grass, I mean, at the end of the day, it has to be a certain height, and the grass has to be removed. Is that a fair statement?
Sure. I think you've been one of the biggest proponents of this thing in our industry. It comes down to a word, and I believe it's one of yours, probably one of the Foreclosurepedia, standard words that we hear, but standardization, it's one of the things that you've been preaching about for at least 3 or 4 years that I've known you. And it certainly comes to bear in the fact that most of the tasks that we do are routine. However, what is routine to us may not be routine to a different client. And I feel that one of the biggest problems we have in this industry is there really isn't a governing, of course, in my beliefs, I would look to one trade association to step forward and assume that role. And I think if some things were, changed inside that, you'd get behind that one too. But I just feel right now we don't have a governing body, and I don't know exactly in your ability. You probably could dissect that a little bit better for me. What a governing body really should be. However, at this point, we don't have it, so I think that everything is kind of we can't get a what is an ISO 9002 reading or whatnot because we don't really have a standard to judge it by. So
right, and
very difficult.
Yeah, and we're gonna delve over into that in the second segment. But right now, I want to talk about a work order, and so let's just for simplicity's sake. Let's say you have company 1, 2, and 3, and because I know you have whatever it is, the 10 or 12 clients, each client has, when they send you a work order, is it fair to say that the submission of the end result, the work order back upstream to your client, company 1 may take less time than company 2, and company 3 may take more time than 1 and 2 combined? Is that fair?
Sure, that's a great understanding of that. There's definitely a different time balance on all the different customers.
When we talk about,
and I think that a lot of that, I wanted to say real quick about that too, is that the time, and I think you're leaning on that, and I forgot to pick up on that. That there is a certain amount of time that to accomplish what each client is requesting for the same task, i.e., if it's an initial secure, if we're doing a lock change on a secondary door. Customer 1 might only need us to do about 10 minutes of time for that, but customer 2 may take us in a whole new second page of a PCR all the way up to 7 pages of PCR with customer number 3. So not only does it take longer in the office to process, but also in the field.
Do you think, and I don't know if you experience it, do you think, well let me use myself as an example, and I'll use a company which has been assimilated, kind of like the Borg on the Star Trek, into another company. So
resistance is futile, Mr. Williams.
Yeah. A couple years back, I was working for an outfit called FAS, and old Dale McPherson had owned them back then, and I got a work order in. We'd just onboarded with them. And I got to looking at this thing, and as I started skimming down to the lock change section, I had all this information. It must be quick set, and then the normal boilerplate, this key code, and so I called them. I'm ex-military as you are yourself, and so when I see a work order, to me that's a set of orders, and so I follow that letter to letter. And I called them and I said, "Hey."
And you're exactly correct with that. And if more people in our industry, followed that rule, there we'd be in a lot less grief than we are right now. By the way. So.
Yeah. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I called and I said, "Look, man," I said, it has a requirement to put quick set locks on here, and I said, "I'm not going to do it for the price." They said, "Oh no, that," and they used the same term. They said, "That's boilerplate language," and I said, "Well, look, I need." I need some guidance on this. So if you want to send me an email and alter that's fine. But at the end of the day, what I'm driving at is I don't see a reason why that we could not have a boilerplate work order form. Now, I know each client is going to have different requirements. Maybe some want 10 photos, maybe some want 50. And so I understand that. And that's a fight for another day. But I spoke...
Sure.
I spoke earlier before we went on air this evening with 3 individuals, all whom were former mortgage bankers, and I said, look, when these work orders generate out from the bank, I'm presuming that they're pretty cut and dry, and all 3 of them, as 2 men and a lady, concurred. They said, absolutely. They said, once that work order hits the pipeline and starts coming down, they said, generally what happens is, so they've adopted language that has just been used for 20 plus years. And FAS was a classic case in point. Apparently way back when, Quickset was required by HUD. But that's one of the things I really wanted to drive home. So today, the landscape of the industry today, we have a tremendous amount of compliance and regulation that is being forced downward. We're seeing no reciprocation with respect to pay, which is another subject, but I would think it would behoove the industry, for want of better words, to sit down and say, so look, these are the requirements of the work order. It has fields, obviously an address, and the field, I suppose to submit the information, are the weeds overgrown, and et cetera, ad nauseum. But to have 50 versions of the information in and of itself, to me, doesn't just seem to be redundant. It seems to be counterproductive, i.e., if I'm taking... The more time that I take from the contractor in the field is the less time that they're going to be able to actually perform upon the services I'm asking them to do.
Sure. And the situation is a little bit more complex, even if for someone who's listening that may be new to our industry. Your Foreclosurepedia reaches across the spectrum of what we have in our industry. I think there people who flock to your site because, it's kind of like Moses out in the desert screaming, "Hey!" And there's so many people that are looking around confused, and they really don't know what's going on. They've just left the whip for their masters, and they know that there's this crazy, situation out there in the desert, and here's this one, dude with the long beard, and he's out there yelling, and they're going, "I don't know, what's worse, going back to the Egyptians that beat us, or this crazy dude's making us wander to where we don't know where we're going?" But the voice in the desert, I kind of think you're hitting it somewhere around 98%. If you really look back over our long friendship and you look at everything you've kind of foretold, it's kind of come to pass. So, people need to start listening. And I think you certainly attract a lot of attention, whether people look at that as good or bad. What I'm trying to say is that what I'm conveying here is that a lot of the newbies you're being taught that, listen, if you want a shortcut, a lot of the problems veteran operators like Foreclosurepedia, Ironclad, I don't have to talk about my company. People know who we are. But there's some people out there that have really had to learn by trial and error. I personally think I've been beaten for about $300,000 in this industry. It's ridiculous. But, hey, redonkulous. But it's happened. It's business. I move on. But if I could save a fellow brother and sister from not having that, and if people can really realize you are a friend to labor, then I think that, your mission is reaching, But the other thing is, the people who are veteran operators, we all look at it that what you're saying is exactly true. We've got such pressure on us right now. I don't think if you interview 10 property preservation companies that are professional, that listen to you, that want to be on NAMPS, want to not be NAMPS, that want to just, be a mortgage field service professional, want to be labor, want to be boots on the ground. It doesn't matter what would coin us. We're trying to do a job to feed our families, and we're all striving to fit into what's considered normal. The problem is we're being forced to comply with all these regulations. I don't think we're arguing so much about the compliance. What we're arguing is the price tag of that compliance has become so stiff on our backs that we're falling like those poor slaves out there, and they're getting whipped, and they're falling to the ground, and it's like, man, what is the final one that's going to break our back? I think when background checks came on the thing, it was an incredible thing that we were going, wow, how are we going to do $60 each? Wow, how are we going to do this? I think we turned the corner on that problem. It is a problem. I'm not going to argue that point. We have to be adults, face that fact. But when you start looking at now, when we're talking about time demands, you just mentioned a whole lot of work we have to do, but imagine that now the turn times have gone to 2 days. Everything is a 48-hour turn. When you first came into the scene in 2010, whatever it was, do you remember that typically we were at what? Net? It was at least 5 days, right?
Oh, yeah. For 5 to 7. 5 to 7
sure,
calendar.
You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now there was an occasional rush. And they usually were, remember back in the fax days, it was stamped with a big red thing, rush, Now, I would be surprised if a work order came over that didn't say rush, that was, hey, take your time, it's great. The problem is, and I think as this affects, we're talking about technology, we're getting to that next, but the problem is we've become oxymoronish in the sense that we can go for technology to help increase things, but if you don't increase the turn times, the technology that helps us counter the turn times becomes, in fact, too demanding, and we actually go counterproductive to what it's trying to accomplish, because you can sit there and route. As soon as a job comes in, you have to route it. You have to not only route it, assign it to a crew. The crew has to go on site, perform the job. It comes back to the office, has to be sent back. But like you just mentioned, when you're filling out a 7-page PCR on a lock change, is that really efficient? How many of those can you do a day?
Yeah, and that's the point that I'm kind of leaning into, and additionally, so right now, I'm also reaching out to quite a few people, both in management and both on labor side.
Well, and you are the one that can do that. I mean, people can have that vendetta, that one-man war. You look like you're what's that guy that comes back from the Marines and goes out there? What was the guy with the machine gun and goes out and takes on everybody? I can't remember what that cartoon was, that character, but you know the one I'm talking about, John Travolta, whatever that one's. But anyway, that's you out there, going out and waging this thing, but they don't see the side of you that's very intelligent. Well, I'm sure they do, but that can actually kind of come to some of these realizations and these answers that some of us are missing pieces of the puzzle. We may have the field work, we may be missing some of the technology, but we have to look to you to provide that stuff for us. And so, anyway, go back to what you're saying. You've been reaching out to other people.
Yeah, and what I'm driving at, excuse me, here is that, so the industry is somewhat moving forward technologically. For example, I'll throw Proven out there. So Proven started off small, so now they are predominantly, the industry standard from the mobile platform base. So we've advanced there. We have somewhat advanced technologically when we speak about compliance. For example, the need to maintain email logs, IM logs, things like that. The problem that I see is that, so on the big things, we're jumping forward leaps and bounds, but on the basics, and what I call it is back to basics, the fundamentals, the work order. So if we are not addressing the core foundation, the building blocks that allows us to get the information to the client and thus to the end client, which is the financial institution, if we don't have a base set of building blocks, the work order form, then what good does the technology do us?
Sure. Well, the other interesting thing is, and I was thinking if we want to go back to the core, like I love what you say, the basics. Let me ask you this. They want you to believe that every time you're at the property that something's changed, something's drastic, this and that. Okay, I can kind of get that. But if we've delved into this modern technology and we have GPS tracker and there's a locator on your phone and there's GPS spy satellites following you in NSA when you're standing there and you log into Aspen Grove, if they know where you're at, why do you still have to take a picture of the front of the house or the house number or the mailbox number or the street sign? If they know you're at the right place and you got the green light, you're at the right place, damn, I'm here, why are we still taking pictures then that we don't need?
Well, on
and
those,
if you don't think that 3 pictures matter, but some of that adds up on a long day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, on those points, and I can see the argument on those, because while the tracking is going on, and this is a personal presumption, but I am curious about how much of that is being logged. And whether or not that's whether it's even legal, I'm not sure.
Well, not only that, but I think another argument is you and I are both grown up adults here. I mean, we shave, have a pair. I mean, can't say on the air, but the thing about this is that's why you bring me on the show. Now, what's so true about this is in anything, it's kind of like a lock. What does a lock do? It's going to be used to keep an honest man honest.
Sure.
It's kind of like the Aspen Grove. I mean, how many? I know, Paul, you got a twisted mind like I do. How many do you think Paul Smiths are doing securings at the same time, multiple places all over America right now? Do you think Paul Smith is a time genie that he can flip from Washington to Florida and back? I mean, you know
exactly.
That if somebody ever was tracking.
Well, therein lies the crux of that entirety. So we do know, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but we do know that the Aspen Grove numbers are being shared. So and that's just at the end of the day. But so
and it's a sad thing.
So we've talked a little bit about, and I think we both agree. So the
work order is definitely a good point.
Exactly.
I believe the standardized form would be awesome.
Technology, so about 5 or 6 months ago, there's an outfit that actually processes a lot of the mortgages and such and refis, and they're called Ellie Mae. And Ellie Mae had their system collapsed, and so Ellie Mae immediately jumped out front and said, people like me, hacking organization like Anonymous had collapsed it. And 2 or 3 days later, the truth came out. And what the truth was the simple fact that their technology was antiquated. It was, in essence, what we call a flat or linear database structure. Today, we have multiple, if you will, work order delivery systems. And to me, this seems like a recipe for eventual disaster. I will go on the record and bring one company up. You don't have to opine upon them. But let's talk about the technology of Safeguard. There is not a contractor I've ever spoken to. I'm not talking about the price. I'm just saying contractor after contractor states, when I try to upload, doesn't matter if it's day or night, inevitably I have to pad my time by an hour because it's going to shut down. It's going to fail.
Sure.
And
well, can you imagine how much volume is running through that system at any one time?
36 million photos per month on average, and that was from a year and a half ago. Now, what I do want to do is mention something here. So there is right now, as I speak to you and everybody else. So Foreclosurepedia, in conjunction with TikiWiki, we have brought a prototype system out, and it will do everything from top to bottom. It will process the work order. It can hook the API code from the financial institution. Here's the beauty of it. Normally, excuse me, it's cost prohibitive, so we're in the $2 to $5 million range.
Sure.
The other problem is that normally the contractor must, if you will, hook in to the client system. What we are rolling out, actually, the contractor has their own platform so that they can manage and control all their information, and they can manage and control all the requirements under audit. The way we've designed this, it even incorporates the mobile phone app. Today, there is no reason to have multiple platforms, to have, for example, and I'm going to say, so bar none, the standard out there right now is PPW. And I like the guys. But what it is a glamorous database, and that's it. And people are hemorrhaging money on this. I just spoke with a large NAMPS client. They had actually come to me and commissioned the development of the TikiWiki infrastructure. I work with Mark Laporte. He's the co-founder of it. The software is actually used right now to power the European Space Agency and the Council of European Governments. With that said, so technology, why is it that we have an addiction to proprietary software? And when I say that, so when I install a piece of any of this onto my phone, this is a third-party app. And let's say I don't care if I have Verizon, AT&T, or whatever, I do not have a guarantee from that third party that if that app destroys my phone or collapses the software infrastructure, that I'm going to be reimbursed. It's not there. So technology here, what I think is great, because this is on the horizon, what's going to happen is we're going to have an equal playing field. And I do fundamentally believe that everybody, whether it's proven, PPW, NAMPS, the banks, everybody has a seat at the table, but the reality is we're all in business to make money. So why do we have to continue to add pieces of software that we got to pay yet more money for, that's going to take yet more time to make it be able to sync, when we can have a one-stop shop? To me, if time is money, we should have this discussion,
Well, no, and it's exactly true. I mean, I wanted to interject something, that's kind of real to this conversation. And, I wanted to talk about FAST real quick, that when we had the last FAST, people sometimes misunderstand what the FAST is.
Let me interrupt you right there. If you could tell the Foreclosurepedia Nation what is FAST, and tell us about that, and then go forward.
Sure. Sorry about that. Well, basically in Florida, we have the FAST. The FAST is the Florida Association of Servicing Technicians, and basically what we envisioned was having a regional type place where we could all come together as equal people, whether we're service people or we're allied, kind of what you're talking about right there, software platform, anybody that offers lawnmowers for sale, things like that, where we could all come together and kind of find some common ground where we're not beating each other up, and even whether it's clients or ex-clients, I've had some great relationships, people I don't work for anymore. I tend to have a potty mouth, but, people still show up and we still try to, network. But I wanted to mention that when we had a discussion. In fact, the CPW guys were down, and it was awesome. They were there, and we kind of talked about some mobile technology. And I was kind of taken back that here Ironclad's kind of the sponsor of this event. We had it at our facility. And I want to do a shout out for everybody that attended. I was kind of embarrassed. We're building this big thing, Paul. We have this huge 1,000 square foot training room besides our big stuff we already have. I think we're kind of about 9,000 square feet. And my construction stalled. I don't know if you heard the story about, I got red flagged by the city and shut my construction down, and my GC was just not there to get it back on track. But anyway, we had to brave some hot temperatures in there. We had some standalone AC units, but we made it through. But I wanted to talk about when I asked in the room, something about technology, and I was kind of taken back that when I asked everybody if I asked if everybody in the room was on mobile app, and everybody in the room raised their hand but my company. and I kind of felt really stupid because I'm thinking, wow, and to this day, truth be told, the very reason why Ironclad doesn't raise their hand is exactly what you're just talking about. So basically, what you just threw out there is exactly the reason why we would flock to a system like that. The problem is a company like Ironclad working for 12 different companies. We work for Company A that has their own system. We have to load onto theirs. Company B, we can use ProveAM, but it goes straight to their system. Company B, we might be able to use Property Preservation Wizard, and we use their mobile app, but it's going to their PPW, whereas I have my own PPW system with my own phones. It gets so complicated that we sit around and we just look like apes. I don't know what to do. And the problem is exactly what you said. Why can't Ironclad, maybe it's cost prohibitive like you said, and you're about to give us an alternative, why can't we send our people out in the field with 12 different clients, but all the information comes back mobile technology to our office? The girls can then disseminate that intelligence and distribute it through the pipeline to where it needs to go. That's exactly why we're not on mobile technology right now. That's why we're behind. There
is one word, standardization, and we're currently in the alpha testing stage. So the platform TikiWiki, as we are employing it right now, so it's moving. When you take all the clients, it's moving right at about 100,000 work orders per month. There's not too many clients. Safeguard level, they obviously do more, but here's the beauty of this. So it allows, let's say you have let's say you have labor in labor work order, labor and management, California, Texas, Florida, and let's say Maine. What this allows the systems to do is this. Each system can query each other. So if you're part of the network, and let's say you're in California and you end up with a work order that's, I don't know, in Texas. You don't have anybody currently. It will allow you to query somebody in that network in Texas. And then that system will then in turn respond vis-a-vis a human element. It'll either say, yeah, sure, we have somebody, we'll do this, or no, we won't. But what it does as well, and we call this a granular protection or a granular permission level, it does not allow that query or the question to delve in to actually see the contractor file, the personal information, the work order. But here is the beauty. Here's the complete beauty of this. Right now, and this is a big problem in the industry. So if Brett Douglas, if Team Ironclad, when you guys process a work order, it's being done within that office. So that means that anybody who audits on the outside, they know those are your computers. You've paid the licenses for them. The router and modem is, I don't know, whatever provider. So anyway, that's all brick and mortar and it's monitored. When the person goes out into the field, the big fear is this. So if they end up with a work order with a loan number, if they, A, have a tangible work order and throw it away, that's a problem. And or B, they go to upload it, let's say at McDonald's, you have a security problem. Here's what this system does. We called it in the intelligence world, it sanitizes it. So the work order that actually goes to the contractor has no personally identifiable information. Completely complies.
Which it should. It really should not. You know,
Really?
that guy that's out in the field, it should not have a name on it. So when the neighbor comes up, because, 9 times out of 10, it just guilts us by association. If the neighbor walks up and says, "What are you doing?" And, "Well, I'm here because Mrs. Jones didn't pay their bill." You don't need to know anything. You just need to know you're here to perform a work order, no different than if you were a lawn company and you were being sent out on a run just to cut your grass, right?
We took the time to ensure that it was compliant with FDCPA, which is Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, Dodd-Frank.
Sure.
And so therein is the beauty. So the days, if you will, of
you have your first customer here is Ironclad, so we got to get this on the list and roll us out. Where's your first test market?
The days of the gargantuan order mills are done, because that was the power and control that they had.
Yeah.
Now, literally, regional associations like the FAST network and such will easily be able to do this. Here's the beauty. So at the labor level, we're probably talking about a price point of probably only, maybe $2,100. It's unheard of, even at the management level. And when we're talking at the 100 to 500,000 work order per month level, we're probably talking, initially probably, I don't know, $125K. But here's the beauty. As opposed to any other system, the updates are free forever. And to me, this is the game changer, because it's not, could we put a huge price tag? Sure. But what we want is we want that level landscape where everybody can get back to doing what they do good.
Sure.
I work in the field. I cut grass good. I don't do work orders good,
And you're absolutely correct, because here's the thing. Technology can be such a dominant side to your network or to your relationships, and we kind of feel like, you know me, you know my soul, you know that I've put my willpower, and it's kind of like I'm the Green Lantern of the property preservation. All I've done is built my business on willpower. I've made a million mistakes. I'm kind of like the Edison, that how do you build a property preservation company? Well, don't do it like Ironclad. I've made every mistake out there, but here we are in 2015 and we're still here. And the reasons why is because if we make a mistake, we learn from it, and we try not to duplicate it again. And this new technology is something we have to embrace. It's just a slow time coming for us. But here's the thing: we don't have, even as big and far-reaching as Ironclad is, I'm not going to go call a software distributor and say, "Hey, I need you to build me a personal program for my." It's just not cost-worthy, like you said. It's cost-prohibitive.
The crazy deal on that is, over the past 19 years, nothing has been redeveloped. I'll give you a good example. LPS, which is now ServiceLink. When you go and read their 10Q and 10K, they're still shoveling millions of dollars to continue to run COBOL, Common Business Oriented Language.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this stuff was around before I was born, and hell, I'm 46.
Well, I was gonna tell you, my sister is about, I don't want to mention her age but let's just say she's 65. She programs COBOL. She was one of the first she has a doctorate in computer science. She was a mathematics doctor, and then I guess computers came around, so then she segued into that. That's what she programmed in. And until you just mentioned that name, I never even heard of it before except through her. She was definitely a COBOL programmer. She wrote the coding stuff, right? That's what she wrote. And that's how long that stuff's been around. That's stories I grew up growing up just knowing my sister was a COBOL programmer.
Yeah, so we're really, I am really excited about this. Predominantly my only involvement in this, so a lot of people don't know. So there's going to be a summit up here in Knoxville in about 2 months, where quietly, much like the Aspen conference during the subprime crisis, what we're going to do is, we're going to sit down with labor and management. We're going to say, okay, management, what are your problems right now? We're not going to, this isn't about pricing. So paperwork-wise, getting your product upstream, technologically, where are your traffic jams, what's going on? And we're going to go to labor and we're going to say, what is your issue on the site? What's going on to get the product from A to B? And then within the admin side, and incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Brett Douglas this evening. Brett Douglas is the founder and the owner of Team Ironclad. That's Ironclad Preservation. You can reach him at www.teamironclad.com. You can always reach out to him, give him a call, give his staff a call, 386-774-0800. And when we talk about the admin side, ladies and gentlemen, the ironclad compound is what I call it, because that's precisely what it is. Because when you walk in from the outside, it does. It has the military bunker type of feel, but when you walk inside, it is an oasis, a veritable oasis, ladies and gentlemen. And it is not just simply to see, like military lockstep, how those work orders move to and fro, how the customers, how the public is greeted as they come in. It's not just the ambience that you experience when you walk in there. It's also the professionalism, the educational room, the religious area that has been set aside and obviously non-denominational. It is welcoming to everybody. Also, the Team Ironclad Cafe. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you want a good cup of Joe, and me, because the fact I don't drink much anymore, I love my Joe. Let me tell you, Team Ironclad is the place to be. But when we talk about that admin side, we want to get everybody's perspective all the way down to who's behind the keyboard and what's going on. And this segues me into the final part to even get and we have already done this, but the issue, so even if you have a universal work order form, which is what we're in the alpha stage actually running on TikiWiki, and you have the technology, if you don't have a clearly defined glossary, there's a problem. Now, we reached out, and we are pending an ISO certification on a glossary of terms. Because to me, everybody needs to be using the same term. Now, what I want to do is not get into mold or discoloration. So that's something best left to all the politicians. But when we're talking about a winterization, and when we're talking about a lock change, and when we're talking about a grass cut, while you and I as veterans, we understand those terms, the new people coming on, they don't. And here's the reality. There's nowhere, anywhere, with an officially sanctioned set of terms. And to me, this should have been done 26 years ago. Now, I spoke with HUD about that, and HUD does have somewhat. And there's another funny little story. I'd reached out to the Mortgage Bankers Association because they have an incredible handbook and glossary dealing, with commercial assets, MDUs, multiple dwelling units. And I'd spoken with a lady there, and I'd said, why didn't you go forward and do it with residential? And she laughed and she said, look, Paul, she said, I know you and you know me. And she said, we'll just call it liability. And she, it rhymed, but that was the truth. So here, this consortium, and some of these people in the consortium, a lot are NAMPS members, some are not, and they will all remain unnamed. But the reality is all of us sat down and we realized, you know what? We have to bring the three pieces of the puzzle together, the trifecta, because without that trifecta coming together, it's not going to go anywhere. And so this is why sitting down, with folks like yourself, because to me, when I look at you and when I look at Team Ironclad, what I look at is not the spear, but the tip of the spear, because the spear is ineffective if the tip is not working.
Sure.
What we would like to do, going forward, and everybody who's listening out here in the Foreclosurepedia Nation, and those of you whom are not in the nation, perhaps you're just listening tonight, those individuals, the congressional representatives listening this evening, feel free to reach out, because what we want to do is we want to get everybody's input. We want a final white paper. We want to roll this out by no later than the end of July. Because what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a HELOC reset. The home equity lines of credit that Foreclosurepedia predicted about last November when everybody laughed at us, so they are here. And the reality is that 54% of them are underwater. That equates, and that means underwater right now, that equates to a volume of about 1.45 million homes that will, not maybe, not hopefully, will come through that pipeline over the next 6 to 7 quarters. And here's the reality. From a technological, from an administrative, and from a manpower point of view, our industry is not equipped to handle it right now. If the floodgates open tomorrow morning, we could not handle it. The big issue on that is the simple fact that this isn't about what company may make it, what company may go bankrupt and collapse. What the problem is that real estate, tangible real estate, is the last pillar of the economic foundation that buttresses our nation. And if we cannot get tangible real estate rolled back out, then we have a serious problem. We have a national security problem. And what I'm driving at is, when we had the subprime crisis hit us, so we built up at 400,000, hit about 525, 700,000, then fourth year we hit about 900,000, then we finally peaked over 1 million and built a little above that. We're talking in 6 quarters. Right now we're about 480,000. We're going to go to 1 million. Drop of the hat, right like that. Our problem is that, so if you take, let's just say 1 million homes, and let's just say there's 2 people per home, and we know there's more, but let's make it really small. That's 2 million people. And we do not have the multiple dwelling units to put them in. The housing starts, regardless of all the bullshit they want to crank out. And I'm good with numbers. That's what I do, is numbers. We do not have anywhere, proverbially speaking, to put them in. Grandma's basement, grandma's basement with all the mold, and the power's been shut off, and the light at the end of the tunnel has been permanently shut off. Here's the reality. It doesn't matter how many hands are holding each other singing Kumbaya. There's nowhere to put them. So we got to roll these HELOCs right back out. And this, I believe, is where the dialogue between labor and management, not the arguing, not the rhetoric that I am so notorious for, this is where putting labor and management into the same room, coming up with precisely what they need, and bypassing those names that we always hear, those associations that we always hear, and going straight to the banks and saying, look, here is what we see, here is where we need to be. You guys step in with us, become a partner, because the banks have an enormous vested interest as well. These are their properties at the end of the day that are underwater.
Well, I wanted to, mention one thing. We talk about this crisis is looming out there, and the point that I try to bring up, and nobody really listens to me. It's been my personal campaign for over a year. What do you think the actual number of veteran operators, because of the downward pricing, the upward increase on, the regulation and everything else, how many of the veteran operators do you think have been forced out of our industry, that have folded up, just quit, like the gold rush that never happened, they just kind of melted away? How much do you think of our experienced operators are gone? And
I think we have an
crazy
attrition.
To assume.
I think we have an attrition rate, and I have some pretty good data. I went back up to Washington, D.C. Several months back. I actually spoke with several sources at the United States Department of Labor. The big problem with tracking anything in this industry is that our NAICS, the North American Industry Classification System Code, is janitorial, otherwise unspecified. So at the SAM level... But there are indicators that we can track it by. So I took those stats that DOL gave me, and then I also reached out to developers at Craigslist. A lot of people don't know this, but if you have the API code to be able to hook in, you can find out, based upon any keyword, how many ads based upon certain keywords are published per day, hour, week, month, year. So with respect to what is the attrition rate for seasoned veteran contractors in this industry, I would say in the upper 70 percentile. And that is...
Yeah. Well, I was going to tell you that you gave me that answer earlier, and so I was just mentioning it for the Foreclosurepedia Nation to kind of understand what we're facing. And I actually, to test your theory, even though I know you speak, total truth there in the gospel to me, I actually went just as a matter of thinking. I remember the days of a year ago, 2 years ago, getting on Craigslist, let's say in Orlando, Florida, and there was literally a plethora. I love to throw out that word. That's one of your words. But a plethora of ads of all these greedy, people trying to rip off labor and, do this for, a cut and a cut and a cut of a cut of a cut. But you know what? There was just pages and pages and pages. And now I go and look at it, in less than one page, it's almost literally 2 months worth of ads. And so you're exactly correct. These people have melted away. They're gone. And it leads me to believe that either companies are going out of business a little bit faster than we know they are, or we're seriously facing an epidemic. Not only do we have a looming inventory, and if we're really prepared to do battle with a bunch of newbies, here's the other scary thing, Paul. We talk about not only do we have to get regulations, and I guess this would be one of the topics to close on, we talk about we have to have the standard form. We talk about the technology and the new systems that come in place that can help us, but when you talk about that perfect trifecta, think about the training portion of it. And I understand where you're coming from, because we're placing the cart before the horse when we talk about training all the time. But like you always point out, not to steal your thunder, what are you going to train on? If we don't have that standardization, if we don't have that form, if we don't have that glossary, we can't. However, if you guys are actually intent upon bringing that to our industry, the training can then commence. But if we don't start training these newbies, there is no way that we can even battle that stem of foreclosures coming. So we have certainly a daunting task ahead of us.
My, the only actual bona fide system. Let me interject here. Safeguard, incidentally, several months back, so they quietly rolled out. They actually built a whole training facility. I want to say it's about 3,000 square feet. They actually run a lot of their paper shufflers through it and their inspectors and such. But actual training that you can do online, the only thing I've found so far that even comes close is probably NAMPS. And a lot of people probably right there, their assholes puckered up so tight you can't get a stick pin through it. But that is
what? Did I hear that correct? What? I just heard a dish drop somewhere.
Yeah, but that is the truth. NAMPS took the time, they invested, so it's there. But the issue becomes,
Eric did kind of rule that he did rule the first fast, didn't he? Fast one, that was kind of cool, wasn't it?
I tell you, I was heavily
put him on the spot, and he stepped up quick. Didn't he?
heavily impressed, but there herein lies our quandary, because there is still so whereas NAMPS has always been a trade association, how does the common person network to simply be able to get the training? And to me, and that's out of my league. I don't know what the answer is, but you're spot on.
We're just putting it out there.
If we don't start you're absolutely correct. If we don't start getting people's minds wrapped around the fact that, hey, you got to do it this way. This is assembly line product. Then when we start getting 1 million homes running through this pipeline, and they are coming. Go no further than the Federal Reserve's beige book. This isn't conspiracy. This is reality. You're right. What are we going to do? Because now, if we get a bunch of, swinging blanks in there and they start screwing shit up, the companies that are doing it right, the question presents, do they even have time? Because if everything's on a 48-hour turnaround, I don't know. I am worried about that. I am.
Well, and I want to leave one more comment with, I've been known to sometimes frequent the LinkedIn, and sometimes, we hear we see the posting and we see all that, and sometimes it's kind of, I want to bring up a point real quick about what you said, about the fierce competition, the proprietary intelligence that we share in this community, and how we basically, and I want to segue this into what you were saying about your technology. The point that I liked was this. People ask Ironclad to do things that are outside our coverage area. And you know what we do? We actually reach out to other contractors we know that are vetted, that are proper, and do the right thing, and we refer them to them. If they don't want to deal with them, then I just send the guys the straight money. I don't sub it out. I just send it to them. We pay them. We take care of bada bing, bada bang. The problem we have right now is people are so busy beating their chest. They may cover one county. They may cover 2 counties. You know what? That's great, man. I'm happy for you. I really am. You're probably the best thing since sliced cheese and your sphere of influence. But guess what? Your sphere of influence is really, really small. It's like going to the Trojan War, and all of a sudden you're looking at something and you go, wow, I'm outnumbered here. When we face this crisis, we have to all be properly trained and prepared to fight a larger battle. So what we have to do is get our minds together instead of going to conferences and getting wasted or talking about this and that. When are we going to realize that we've got to sit down, and whether that's association members, non-association members, the President of the United States, we all have to get rid of this rhetoric, get serious, roll up our sleeves and start making something happen. What you've done, Paul, you brought a forum to us. I hope people are listening tonight that start getting concerned and start getting involved. Don't let just a few people do this. I asked last week, and I'm going to ask again, people support this mission. I've donated myself personally. I believe in this cause. I want people, normally I don't sit there and say Ironclad's done this, Ironclad's done that. But here's the thing. I believe in this program so much. It doesn't have to be that Ironclad's always a voice on here. We're a guest. We're going to continue to sponsor this because I believe this is sincerity right here. And I certainly want to thank you for bringing me on the show. And at my little bit of knowledge that I've gained over the years in this industry, the things I'm trying to do with FAST, our relationship, Paul, I am always going to be here for you. You've always been there for me. We may see different things sometimes, but you know what? At the end of the day, we're grown men, and we can reach across that table, and we know we're both passionate about this industry. So I'll let you close it up.
Amen. I appreciate that. And I'm going to say here tonight, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking tonight with Brett Douglas. He's the founder and owner of Ironclad Preservation. That's Team Ironclad. You can reach them at www.teamironclad.com. You can always reach them by phone. Reach the office there, 386-774-0800. I'm going to say it out there tonight, the 17th of May, 2015, at 2200 hours Eastern Daylight Time. I'm going to reach out with every ounce that I have within the sphere of my influence. I believe that Brett Douglas should be nominated to the board of directors of the National Association of Mortgage Field Services. And I'm going to put this caveat in there. Because of the fact that Brett can reach across the aisle, both within management and within labor, I believe Brett would make an incredible ombudsman. Because this isn't about Foreclosurepedia. This isn't about Team Ironclad. This isn't about individualism. What this is about is the fact that we need to take an industry that is very fractured. And what we need to do is those individuals, because look, the only model that's going to succeed going forward, with the exception of the rural areas and perhaps Hawaii, Alaska, portions of Montana, eastern Tennessee, and Puerto Rico, the only model that's going to succeed is the W-2 model. Mr. Douglas has the ability to reach across that aisle, and we need to move those individuals out there who are riding the fence perhaps over into NAMFS. In addition, we also, from the labor point of view, need to be looking at the organization of FAST. Brett has command and control of FAST down there based out of the Team Ironclad headquarters. The reality is that Brett has the ability at the Ironclad compound to begin to give hands-on training. And so that's part of the FAST Academy idea. Now, whether it is implemented vis-a-vis a FAST standard or a NAMP standard is immaterial. But we need, ladies and gentlemen, we need Brett Douglas on that board. And I'm going to tell you why we need it. We need his leadership. Mr. Douglas comes from the United States Army. He served faithfully, is honorably discharged. He has those same qualities that the rest of us out here look up to. Not just look up to, but we are drawn to this sense of leadership, and we need this because there are only leaders or followers, and the reality is that we have too many chiefs that are not chiefs in this industry. Ladies and gentlemen, join with me. Put that information out there. Get your emails rolling, because I'm announcing tonight that Foreclosurepedia is going to do everything in its power to ensure that he will be properly nominated and potentially elected by his peers. Mr. Douglas, it's always a privilege and an honor to speak with you. I enjoy our dialogue, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, and I certainly enjoy reaching out to the Foreclosurepedia Nation, and I just want everybody real quick to just take heart of what we said tonight. Change is coming, guys, and it's kind of like, preparing for a hurricane. So many times, Paul's warned us that this is coming or this is coming, and it's come true. I think if we all want to succeed in this industry, we've got to take careful notice and prepare. So thanks so much, Paul, and you have a wonderful night.
Hey, So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As usual, you may reach me on Google Plus at D. Paul Williams, LinkedIn, Paul Williams, and the LinkedIn group Property Preservation Consortium, Twitter, Foreclosurepedia. We stream all our podcasts on iTunes, Foreclosurepedia. We have our screencasts over on YouTube, the Foreclosurepedia channel, and always at foreclosurepedia.org. We'd like to give a special shout out to Amazon.com, whom provides our S3 podcast and video storage, and Cloudflare for hosting Foreclosurepedia in 24 different geo-position servers pro bono as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to give me a shout out, COO@foreclosurepedia.org.